get some response here. Good morning.
Good morning.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the second edition of the Global Corporate Awards. Last year, we had quite an exciting global corporate ceremony in New York. The corporate world and the global economies are through lots of turmoil and extreme uncertainties. We cannot have strong economies without strong, profitable businesses. Every great work, every big accomplishment has been brought into manifestation through holding on to the vision, and often before the big achievements come apparent failures and discouragements. Today, we need new ideas capable of changing corporate world for better. The future belongs to those who are bold and who are willing to think about the big bets that need to be made to seize the opportunities. It belongs to those who remain focused on their goals despite uncertainties. In this competitive market, dedication, hard work, commitment of excellence, innovation, creativity, and spirit of leadership drive businesses and keep them going. The Global Corporate Awards recognizes such leaders across all businesses and professions and acknowledge their accomplishments. These are the professionals with a strong drive to make things happen, with a can-do attitude, the courage to make their dreams happen, and the determination to see them through. Success is not an entitlement. It has to be earned, and earned every day. If you believe you can conquer the world, you can. We are shaped by our thoughts. We become what we think. As Warren Buffett rightly said, I always knew I am going to be rich. I don't think I ever doubted it for a minute. There is no secret to success. It is the result of preparation, hard work, and learning from failure. I fear not the man who has practiced 10,000 kicks once, but I fear the man who practiced one kick 10,000 times, said Bruce Lee. Passion is what we love doing rather than what we have to do. And by pursuing our passion, work becomes the source of our biggest joy in life. The world's successful professionals are the ones who start with the capital called idea. Once a father said to his son, I believe in you because you believe in yourself. Leadership is the engine that drives everyone in the organization to succeed. Throughout their every action, your leader both inspire the performance and the organization most desires to serve the model that behavior for others to emulate. The world is quite complex, challenging, and dynamic. Every professional and every corporate leader goes through routine corporate life of overcoming obstacles, facing testing times, and steering ahead with ever-increasing competitive pressures. Compliments are rare to come by. Appreciation and recognition, though deserved, seem to be rather in short supply. On that backdrop, we thought of creating a platform called the Global Corporate Awards to recognize the global corporate achievers. Appropriate recognition and applause to the achievers not only encourage them to move ahead, but they inspire many others to go on and achieve new milestones. Ladies and gentlemen, let's make this morning a memorable one. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for joining us today.
Good morning. In this session now, the next, we will proceed with the first panel discussion. It's a special session in many ways. We have with us our Chairman of the Board of Advisors, His Excellency Ambassador Dr. Abul Kamal Momin. Please welcome Ambassador Momin. Yes. Despite his assignments at the UN, which keeps him very busy, he has taken time to come in from New York all the way for us to be with us. So thank you, Ambassador. The next guest with us is, who doesn't need any introduction, Dr. Kiran C. Patel. IFA, when you enter Tampa, or even when you enter the US, including the JFK airports and many other airports in India, IFA brand is everywhere. All of that has been made possible by Dr. Kiran C. Patel. Please welcome. And the theme for this session now is being a trendsetter. And who else other than Dr. Kiran C. Patel who embodies that theme, being a trendsetter? Born in Zambia, getting medical education in Ahmedabad, then becoming a cardiologist from Columbia University, then moving in from cardiology into starting an HMO practice, growing that revenue to over $1 billion, selling that company, restarting another one on the similar lines, which is being now the second largest in the state of Florida. While doing all of that, doing all philanthropy work in his native, which is his father's birthplace in Gujarat, taking care of thousands of underprivileged children, donating millions of dollars to the academia, and while doing that, setting one of the biggest trends to get IFA into Tampa for the first time in the US. So what we thought was we'll have Dr. Patel to speak on the theme of being a trendsetter. Then we'll have a question and answer session. And since every one of you is the achiever in their own ways in their respective organizations, Dr. Patel has allowed us to ask to have a question and answer session. So we encourage everyone, if you have any questions, you can ask Dr. Kiran C. Patel. So we'll start with your opening remarks, Dr. Patel.
Thank you. Thank you for the introduction. I am not sure when I listen to some of that, I like to say that as you get older, you sometimes get credit for things you don't do, and you get complaints about the qualities that you may not have. So, he had mentioned that I was born in Zambia, my education was in India, I'm of Indian origin, and subsequently settled in the United States. So sometimes I like to say I'm a nomad or a global citizen. Very few people have the opportunity to be blessed to go through different cultures of the type that I have been able to go through. And many a times, this word about trendsetter, and many times I'm questioned, how did you do it? I think it is a very difficult answer for me to give how did I do it, because I had always believed in myself. And my greatest attribute or my downfall has been that I am a type of a guy that says it's my way or highway. And I do that. There is a good balance between arrogance and confidence. But in my case, I always believed in things. So for example, I was surprised when I finished my medical education and went back to Zambia to practice. One of the person that was taking care of me, babysitting time, he told me that when you are small, you are playing with me, telling me I'm going to give you injections, and then I was giving him injections. So in my mind, somehow, whatever path I had set had always happened. So if I just take you through a brief journey of my life, and here is Shilan coming in.
Please welcome Shilen.
He is my son.
Actually, the reason we are in Tampa.
So, the younger generation, I had to wake him up this morning, and he had set up this whole thing to make sure I'm here. So, sorry, embarrassing you. So I was born in Zambia, I always wanted to be a doctor. While I was practicing, while I was a student, I was sometimes questioning that why should I be spending so much time and money on education? I can start a business very quickly and make more money as a doctor. Now that has also happened, but in a different way. So I had always been the first in many. So for example, in India when I went, I had done the University of London advanced level and Cambridge O levels, which are a different standard from India. So usually people do 2 years of college education in India before getting into medicine. I was able to circumvent that, use my training in Africa for the first time and get in. So similarly, I was the first one from Gujarat University to do internship in Zambia. So as I go through my life, at each places I had been a different person. And I was always ambitious and entrepreneurial. So once I got into medicine, and when I was in Zambia, in a short span of 2 years, I had 4 people working. So I had 6 practice locations within the first 2 years, even in Africa. At that time there was, each time nature had also created some environment, but it's a question of taking advantage of those environments, right? So there were many, many doctors before me, but in Zambia there was shortage of doctors, and a Zambian could bring in a doctor. So I took advantage of that and expanded. After 2 years of my stay there, I went to US and I was doing residency. And a small example of things that I've been doing to get where I am. So in medical practice, you write the doctors and the attendings, when they finish their work, our professors, they have to do a discharge summary of the patient. So I went to the doctors and they always lag behind. So I went to them and said, I will do your charts for $7 a piece to finish your discharge summary. And whenever we are doing our ER calls, which we have to do every 3rd or 4th night, in the spare time, in an hour, one could knock off 3-4 charts. So I had my 4 residents that worked with me and myself. 5 of us would do the charts, but I'm paying them $5 a piece, and I'm collecting 7. So for every hour I work, I make my $28. And for every hour they work in 4 charts, I make $8. So 8 times 4, 32, and my 28 is 60. Well, they make 20, I will make 60. So leveraging in a way is what it is, because as a physician, you can only earn for the number of hours you put in, and only so many hours in the day. So unless you can find leverage, so I'm just going to give some things that I did and I will give. So most people out of residency are wondering where they will go, how they will work, where they will work. I knew from very first day I was going to come to Tampa. That was because my younger brother had a motel here. When you come from New York to Florida, I think for me the decision was very quick and very easy because of the weather, etc. And I also knew I was not going to work for anyone. So just 3 months before my residency was over, I came across an ad for practice to sell in Florida. So in Tampa. So and just to put your mindset in it was midnight or so when I saw that ad. I landed just from India, going through the mail and saw this ad. So at that time, Western Union, so I picked up the phone and sent a telex that I'm interested, and then followed up my letter. There was no email those days, but that's how I communicated. Now, again, person right out of residency will never dare to buy a practice, will not have the means to buy a practice, and neither did I, but I am very creative in finance. So I negotiated with the doctor first his price and then went through. Then I had him finance, gave me an idea of buying his building, etc. So what I'm doing is, what somebody would be dilly-dallying with, I was doing two first, focused on where I was going, what a practice, and settle down. Now, in those days, there were small hospitals in this town where people would shy away from going. So I went to those hospitals where nobody wanted to go. To give you an idea how bad this situation was, to do a simple procedure of an echocardiogram, they would have to be taken from an ambulance from one hospital to the other. Now, this it is hard to believe that in 82 the time was like that. So, lots of doctors have been there. What I did, and I never had money, right? So what I did is contracted a mobile company and told him I'll pay you X dollars. Then to the hospital I said I'm going to charge you Y dollars, and brought the service there. So this the hospital themselves could have done, but they can't even think like that. So I was bringing in services to the hospital. So now every time an echocardiogram is done by anybody in the hospital, I am making money. Because I am the only cardiologist probably there, I am the only guy that is able to read it, so I am making money from that also. But most importantly, the patient that used to go in a stretcher, go and lay in a hallway, from there to provide the service at the bedside. So on each thing, as you will see, in the first example I gave, those days in moonlighting, we were getting $20 an hour. Residents were happy because they were making $20 an hour during a time that is dead time that they will be spending in the hospital anyway. In this case, the patients and them are benefiting with additional modalities, convenience, etc. So, and I will now go to the last point and then maybe open up. I don't know how much time I have, because I can go on and on if I'm talking about my life history. But, so the other thing that I had done, I come to town in 1982. And at that time I give an example of the hospitals, how I became creative. I bought a practice without money through negotiation and using our MD and signature. Then I bought a house in 82 for approximately $300,000. That's a lot of money then. And here is a guy that's just coming out of residency, but again we had a zero down financing through the bank. And I showed the bank the balance sheet of the previous doctor to show I have the capabilities of servicing the debt. And a hospital gave me a contract for the emergency room. So those nights we were getting $300 a night for moonlight. So I had a very simple calculation. And if I want to own this house, I have to spend 10 nights in the hospital. And I got my house. So that's $3,000. I find it, I've got that. And I bought a Mercedes. So I said another 3 days in the hospital. So I was never afraid of working hard. I was never afraid of using my MD. So these people must be thinking this guy is a mafioso that came from somewhere a lot of money to come into town brand new like that. And I will give you one other example. When I was coming to town, we had a very small community. There were only about 4 or 5 Indian physicians in Tampa. So naturally a community person took me to somebody else. And he told me that don't come to this town, because he was also a cardiologist, right? So he was afraid if competition is coming. I'm thinking I have to wait in his waiting room, go through all the routine types of stuff. But he said, don't come to town. So now, when I came in town, referral was a question. So I would not get too many referrals from the local physicians, because it will build up those. And of course the issue of education, ethnicity, etc., all coming into play. Now, contrary to most people, I did the reverse. In those days, I had brought in at least 50 physicians into town. So when I was advised by this guy that don't come, if anybody comes to me, I will say come and I'll support you. So in a way, my approach was different from other people. I said it's like the rising tide raises all boats. So I was instrumental in bringing more than 50 people in town, and they brought in more. So that was one of my tendencies, that I was not like it's only me or I want to protect my territory. If anybody gets ahead, I had no problem. So now I'll go to my final, how I got into HMO. I got into it vicariously. When I came into town, in my case, I was never focused on the insurance of a patient. So most doctors would say, I will treat this insurance guy, I'll do this, I'll do that. I would see anybody that comes in through the door. And just to, I don't know how many people are from Florida, but all the way from Lake Okeechobee, Okeechobee, which is about a couple hours away from here. Medicaid patients were not being taken by any cardiologist. So government pays for their taxi, but that patient would be brought all the way from a couple hours drive to me, because there is no other cardiologist in the area that want to take Medicaid. So when HMOs came in, it was like a social taboo that even see that patient was a problem. And because one of my physicians was started into that practice, I started taking care of it. But that gave me an opportunity to see that there is a lot of potential. So in 1987 or so, only 5 years after my getting into town, I bought a practice for $1.8 million. Now, million to think in those days was like 10, 12, 20 million bucks maybe. But I had negotiated well. I tied my pricing to the members he had. So the point I was making is I made the deal attractive enough for the physician to give up, and I could see the margins in it. So, but the main point that was there is I went into the healthcare business, I went into the healthcare business vicariously because I was taking care of population that nobody wanted. And that in itself gave an opportunity. So I said, rather than fighting the system, take the destiny in your own hands, control it, and then give the type of care you want to give. So I was able to really grow, and in 88 I started a health plan after that. So first I started buying out practices. I started solo. I had 26 doctors working for me by 1985. I had then been subcontractor of the insurance companies, and I said, if these insurance companies jerk me around, why don't I start my insurance company? Now, all these, nobody had done ever before. So each step was something unique and different. And all those I have done without any capital. So the health plan, there were 27 or 28 doctors who had started a health plan. They were about to go bankrupt. So I went to them and offered them this opportunity. I'll take on your liabilities and take on your health plan. And if I am successful, in 5 years, I will buy you on 50 cents on the dollar of the investment. So they had an opportunity today to make zero and get $1 million of debt that they have to shell out. Or they pass on the health plan to me, they are relieved of the liability and their potential of making 50% of recovery of their principal. So it was a very good deal for them. But when they found out I made it grow into $1 billion company and made the money, they were telling that they made millions. But the point I was making is, without money, through creative financing, I got that platform and grew it. So I think I will pause here for questions. And I just wanted to talk a little bit there. I have not talked of philanthropy, but maybe as questions come, I will answer. I just wanted to give a background of how I started my early life with zero and saw opportunities and created opportunities from the environment that I was in, and I've been able to come to this level.
This is an amazing story, as we are so proud of the theme we have created, being a trendsetter. Now just imagine, after listening to him, if we do a survey of someone who doesn't know his background, if we ask them, what do you think the qualification of this person would be? Who can state the finance, being so intelligent about structuring the deals? Any chartered account, any CPA or any MBA, I bet would probably come in to learn from Dr. Kiransi Patel. Please give him a big round of applause. Another learning for all of us here from the corporate world is, he hasn't taken whichever the parameters every one of us take as given and fixed. He questions, he has been questioning them, that these are not the fixed parameters, there could be another way to look at it. And this is how he has uncovered opportunities for himself and executed it brilliantly. That's what has made him to what he is now. Now, before we open the floor to the participants, Doctor, just one question is on IFA. Now, everyone, we are in a town where IFA is happening today. It is very unrelated to actually your core field, but we know that you are very passionate. So, if you can just give us a brief overview on how did that thought came to your mind, and the IFA journey where 800 million people globally are going to watch this award ceremony, which is going to take place today. So, how did it come about?
So, I will be careful in how I answer this. But in my past story of patients taking care of them without insurance and getting to an HMO, one of the things I tell people, if you do the right things for right reasons, right results follow. In case of IFA, I had many challenges. First was my wife. She did not want me to get involved. And usually I do what she tells me not to do. And that is not because she is wrong all the time, but it's because, like I said, it's my way or highway. If I start believing in something, I will do it. So in IFA, I saw 2-3 opportunities. The first thing is, I like big things. And I like to be first. So, I don't know if these are the right reasons, that's why I preamble by telling right reasons, right results will follow. So, here I thought that if nobody so far has been able to bring to America, and I'm going to be able to do it, and that also in Tampa. Because the logical place is LA, New York, Chicago, San Francisco, you name it. So, this idea idea was brought to me by my brother-in-law, Chetan Shah. And I slowly, first I told him that when they told the budget, I said, this is beyond even thinking. But slowly, he showed me a couple things, and the fast things, so the glamour glitz got me. And then I said, let me take a chance on it. So, 2-3 qualities that I am trying to bring here is, I am, quote unquote, a risk taker. I usually do things that not many people do. And the results may always be good or bad, but most time everything has fallen good for me. Now, if you look at IFA, because of time constraints and weather constraints, we had to plan an event. First, we needed a venue that was big enough. So if we wanted to do a large enough venue like the Raymond James Stadium, it was not available in the July weekend that we wanted. So now we had to go looking for a time period, because to prepare the set, those of you who have been there can imagine the type of electrifying stage and things they built. They need about 7 days to build, show, and break down. So you need to have the stadium available for all those 7 days. So we had to move that early. So we had to achieve an event of this type in 8 months. 6 actually, by the time we started finally. So there are many challenges, but as you can see, nature cooperated with us. Absolutely brilliant day. We were able to have a huge success, 8,000 people at the first event at Bashcom in the Curtis Hickson Park. Never witnessed that type of crowd by Tampa in its history. And then the 2 shows, so you can see things worked out. But the initial thought process is, I'm not a star. I will not recognize half the stars that are in front of me. So my reason for doing it was very different. Is because this will be the first, this is the largest event, 800 million people watching. Those type of things went through my mind. And the financial exposure and risk was great. So taking in those type of challenges, risking money, financially many deals work out, many don't. So far I have been successful, and I cannot take credit of my skills all the time. There have been other forces behind me that have made it happen. But I've had my own lumps along the way. But at least at this point, we got in because it was brought to me, and I took that risk of bringing it in this time.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Mayor of Tampa, Mayor Bohora. He has just joined us. So please come on. Time for a couple of questions. If we can open it to our delegates for Dr. Kiran C. Patel before Mayor's session starts.
My name is Bimal Shah, and I strongly believe I have $1 billion idea, and I want to know what are the first 3 things or first 3 steps you would take to bring it to concept, from concept to fruition, and what are the 3 most important things you would keep in mind in your journey to bring that $1 billion idea to fruition?
I think very simply put, first is the core competency. So whatever idea you have, do you have the knowledge enough about that? So many people can bring many things. IFA like me was one of those where I had no competency and I jumped into it. I'll come to the reason last, but the second part is the belief in yourself. I think there is an unbelievable part of it. When Shilen joined me first time, I told him that if you want to eat, breathe and drink, this you come to me. You have to be 24/7 on that business, not 8 to 5, not what you feel like, but day and night you are only on that one focus, that this is what I want to achieve, and whatever it takes. There are lots of sacrifices along the way, but knowledge, belief, and then money is important, but at this stage, for example, when I took on a project of this type, where I did not have enough knowledge, but I did have some belief that I will make it happen, and I did have the money. So at some point it transitions when you have a lot of money, or VCs, that's why money brings money at times, but at the level we are when we are starting, I believe it's the knowledge, core belief, perseverance, hard work, and pushing it through. It's not always successful. It took me 20 years the first time to get in a health plan from 1 million to 1 billion. And the second time, I was able to reach that in 3 years, from 100 million to $1 billion. So that would be there. Now, being careful is don't get into something that just because you imagine. That's why I say capability is also that. You know, dreaming big and being realistic. So can you take it? If you look at when I told you about my life story, on small incidents is how I have done. So grown step by step, and it does not happen overnight, because in today's microwave society, everybody thinks it happens like that. Now, some people are lucky, but most people have put in 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 years before they see. And majority of them are in their 60s and 70s when they hit a home run. So it's not always in the 20s and 30s that happens, although there are many examples of that. But there are 1,000 more when it is the other way around.
Thank you.
We have time for one more question.
Yes.
You can identify yourself.
Yogi Goswami, University of South Florida. I think you told your story, which is amazing, and you're brilliant. That even though you're a doctor, you structured financial deals in ways that you could do without having to sell your body and soul to somebody else. That's in the service industry. Now, a number of Indian Americans are coming up with ideas which would be more in the manufacturing industry, and that's where a lot can be done. The question I have is, how do people like you and others who have been successful and who are now in a position to take some of those ideas and make some other people successful? In other words, financing some of the things for which they would need to go somewhere else, and again, it just depends on how they are perceived and how much investment will go.
I think there is always a challenge for $1 billion ideas, like they mentioned, in a startup capital or angel funding. What we've done in Tampa is started TIE that was not existing here, and we have now raised $1 million to start funding small companies in their startup needs. 5 to 10 companies a year. But it's a very difficult question because not all parts of this country has the capital resources. Now, if you think about it, a lot of our people in the Silicon Valley made it big in the 80s. And they started Thai, and that money brought in more money. So, I think it will happen in our case, in my case. What I focused on initially in my case first was the local community, family, then local community like building India Cultural Center, temple, etc. Expanding to the city, USF, performing arts, then going to the global hospitals in Zambia, hospitals in India, taking care of kids in Tanzania. So my energy had more been on the social entrepreneurship and primarily investing in schools and hospitals, because if you have education and you have health, I think you are multiplying the type of people that will have a brighter future. So it's just a perspective of an individual of where should you invest your dollar and which gets you more bang for your buck. So in my village school, where we are producing 100 kids a month, a year, 1100 plus kids studying there. Now those 100 kids are having brighter futures because most of them are going to medicine, engineering, science, etc. From an area where it was virtually impossible to get that many people educated at that level. We have 100% pass result with over 70% in distinction. And for the last 12 years, we are the only school, or one of few schools, there are less than 200 that have had 100% pass results consistently. So focusing the energy in that area. Now coming to a specific question, my problem is there are some people that can use their knowledge to become a mentor. In my case, I sometimes think that this is so simple, what is there to teach? So that's the problem I am facing. Now, I will just take the mayor's another 5 minutes, tell a story and then end it. I will start first. When I was 16 years old, our neighbor had died. I was just 16. The neighbor, the main breadwinner, had some heart problem, had gone to Rhodesia. At around 4 a.m., a phone call came that we should call the wife from next door because they did not have a phone, we had a phone. So I went there to bring them, and we found that time the news that he had died. This lady, all the relatives came in. My dad at that time was in India. And all the relatives came up with solution of breaking this family, sending the widow back to India. They had some land and then they will help, etc., etc. This lady said, no, I will only do what my dad, after his advice, she'll take whatever decision she wants to do. So now my dad came in and he wrote a letter to all the creditors that if you will forgive the debt, if you push hard, she can file bankruptcy, you're going to get 11 cents to the dollar. If you forgive the debt, you might be able to give a livelihood to the family. And all the creditors he negotiated in that manner and got them off the debt. He used his own personal credit to get merchandise for the stock. This lady started running the shop, and their home got paid off. Every night they bring in the money to us, to my dad, and they do it. And I was helping him in some bookkeeping. I bring this story because then I thought of this a little bit later. I bought a company called Wellcare in New York. Now, most of you here might know this ad of the shaver of Victor Tam telling, I like the shaver so much that I bought the company. And I like to say, I like the name so much that I bought the company. So this company was in a stock market, flying high and suing me for our name. So they got into trouble. The stock went from $40 down to $5 and down to 50 cents. When I went to negotiate, and I was alone, I walked into a room, I paused for a second. I was a buyer, there were about 20, 30 people in the room. And I'm the buyer walking in without a lawyer or an accountant. And here were the government regulators, the public company, and their lawyers, in-house counsel outside, and a second buyer, the in-house and out-house lawyers. But then I was to have an opportunity to buy a company that was a negative net worth of $50 million. And I was given 30 days to clean it up and buy. So everybody thought that he is a foreigner from Florida coming to New York to buy a healthcare company, how he's going to do it. But I restructured that company by piling up, there was $30 million of debt of the doctors, and put it in a bucket, and came up with my own $5 million, sold a piece of company for $5 million, put the $10 million in the pot, and I told all the creditors that you'll get 30 cents on the dollar today, and if you work with me, you get 5 cents a year. So if they work with me, they're going to get 45 cents. If they don't, they get 0. So long story short, I cleaned up that company with a negative net of $50 million in less than 30 days, got into a positive net worth, and ultimately built it up to $1 billion company. When I think of what my dad did for this family, is exactly what I was able to achieve here, that I didn't connect it. Later on I did, but some things you learn along your way. And that's what happened. So restructuring, and because I never had the money, all the health plans I bought, including the first one in Tampa, was all because nobody wanted it. They were all underwater, upside down, and my strategy was very simple. Go to the creditors and just negotiate something, deep discount, get it cleaned up and move on. So I will end here and let the mayor or others take over. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Dr. Patel. And as we can see, actually, if he can just share his life story with so many young minds across the world, probably he could replicate lots of millionaires and billionaires and who can have impact on the world. So we really thank you, Dr. Patel. Now the next panelist for our theme. But before that, Honorable Mayor, our distinguished delegates include corporate achievers from the states of New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, Wisconsin, and all the way from India. So it's a really honor that we are very fortunate to have the mayor here. Now, Honorable Mayor, the theme now is being a trendsetter. And the way there are millions of towns across the world, but none of them could do what Mayor Bhagwan has done. And that's why he's a trendsetter. He got IFA here, where the brand of Tampa would be across 800 million people worldwide. So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mayor, Honorable Mayor Bob Bhagwan.
Good morning. I am sorry my voice is a little raspy. I've been trying to explain for the last 2 days to the entire International Press Corps what those dance moves that I was doing the other day. I think that video has gone viral, and the Duda Tampa, done by the mayor, is an international dance phenomenon. So it's, my wife was very embarrassed. But it's good to see you, and thank you for being here, thank you for the kind words, and obviously listening to one of Tampa's finest citizens, Dr. Patel, somebody who's been a very, very generous member of this community. to hear the success story of what he's accomplished is always inspiring. I am the mayor of the 55th largest city in America, the city that you see right here. But for us, this is a special weekend. I mean, how often is it on a Saturday morning I get up and put a tuxedo on and walk past Anil Kapoor, getting ready to go jogging on Bayshore. He's got some skinny legs. I want you to tell him next time you see him. He dances a little better than I do, but I think I got better legs than he does. But it really has been, I hope you've had as much fun as I know I have over the last couple of days, and as I know my city has. We didn't know what to expect. This was new for us. I mean, we were used to more traditional events. We've hosted 4 Super Bowls here. We just hosted the Republican National Convention 2 years ago. If you can imagine 15,000 members of the media here, as well as Clint Eastwood talking to a chair. You had a whole cast of characters from all over the country that came to Tampa, Florida to be a part of the Republican National Convention. And the second most viewed television event in the entire world that year behind the Olympics was the political conventions here. Obviously, it was a very contested race. And so the eyes of the world were watching Tampa, Florida. And with 15,000 members of the media, with a hurricane approaching, I didn't have gray hair 3 years ago. That hurricane was heading directly for Tampa Bay, and knock on wood, and thank God that it did not occur, but it really was an amazing exercise for us, and I am proud to say that we hosted that event and did it better than anyone has ever done it before. If you can imagine Minneapolis, St. Paul 40 years ago, where they hosted the Republican National Convention, there were 800 arrests, because these conventions tend to attract, a lot of crazy stuff and a lot of crazy people, some of whom want to do bad things. Minneapolis, St. Paul 4 years ago, there were 800 arrests as anarchists and folks showed up. There were millions of dollars of property damage as well. In Tampa, Florida, in the face of a hurricane, 2 arrests, 0 property damage. So this city really, which I think is one of the reasons why we were selected by IFA to host this event. This is the first time it's ever been held in the United States. It's been in Macau, it's been in Singapore, it's been Johannesburg. It has been everywhere but the States. And so I think for IFA and for Wizcraft and for the Bollywood industry in total, this was an opportunity to launch the brand, if you will, or to solidify the brand here in the States. And we were so honored that they picked our community to do that. This is the largest media market in the state of Florida. But I also think they recognize that we have a history of doing these kinds of events well. And so when we were selected 9 months ago, not a lot of us knew what to expect. I, like Dr. Patel, candidly didn't know much about the Indian film industry. I had seen Slumdog Millionaire, and that was pretty much it. So we were immersed in it for the last 9 months, learning about the culture, learning about the stars, learning about everything that we could possibly learn about the industry. We have a fairly significant Indian American community here. When Dr. Patel got here, there were, what, hundreds? Now we're upwards of 30,000 plus. It is a growing community. It is ingrained in our community, in the mainstream community. And it has been a wonderful addition to the diversity of this amazing city. Now bear in mind, we're not your typical white bread southern city. I mean, we were settled by Cubans, Italians, and Spanish immigrants who came to Tampa largely because this is where the cigar industry was. We are multilingual. Many of our citizens speak Spanish, they speak Italian, they speak English. They can go between all three. They make up words that don't exist anywhere in any of those other languages that are unique to Tampa, Florida. And if you go into some of the coffee shops, Cuban coffee shops around here, you will hear multiple languages and people moving back and forth between many languages. So with this is a special place. But we really didn't know what to expect. And so we prepared and we trained and I flew to Mumbai. And that was a trip in and of itself. I think I flew a total of 40 hours to be there for 36 hours. And the trip over was painful. It was from here to Newark, 5-hour layover in Newark. It was a 14-hour flight from Newark to Mumbai, sitting in the last row, in the last seat, with my head up against the restroom, with a TV screen that didn't work, and with one of my traveling companions asleep on my shoulder. Now, I'm a big believer in being a man of the people, but after about 5 hours, I'm done with the people. Especially when I've seen people come by to use the restroom, which is right behind me. So I did what I rarely do. I drank 2 glasses of wine. I do that. But then I took a Ambien, and I was gone for the rest of the trip until I got to Bohora. It was good to go. But I got to interact with a lot of stars and meet a lot of members of the business community, which is why we are here today. For me, I understand why we're doing this. I mean, it's an amazing opportunity for both the Indian film industry to celebrate its heritage and to expand its horizon to the state. But more importantly for me, and I think in the long run for all of you, whether you are campaigns or whether parts of the state, is the opportunity to create not a 4-day relationship, a decades relationship. Ambassador, this for us is not just about putting a tuxedo and green carpet and trying to explain the dance move. This for us is an opportunity to build relationships with the community, to encourage and to expand investment both by Florida in India and by India in Florida. It's an opportunity to take advantage of the biggest port. As you look out this window here, when you go to get food, the largest port in the state of Florida, 5,000 acres. If you think about Miami, it's 100 acres. This is the biggest port in the state of Florida, closest port to the Panama Canal. This is a port that has the great capacity to grow. We are already doing significant business with India out of that port, and there are significantly larger opportunities for that to occur. Things like this are critical. This is where we build the relationship. This is where we expand trade opportunities. Because what happens when we expand trade opportunities, when we are able to plant our respective flags around the globe, and certainly for Tampa, everyone knows where Miami is because of Miami Vice. Everyone knows where Orlando is because of a mouse. Not everyone knows where Tampa is, but I guarantee you, after tonight, and after this show is broadcast, 800 million people see us doing the Do.Tampa. They're all going to know where Tampa, Florida is. But the opportunity to build on this foundation. We can't just stop Saturday or Sunday when it's home and I go to sleep. We can't. We've got to continue to grow this. I need to Mumbai frequently. Business leaders in Mumbai and other places in India need to be here. They need to recognize that Tampa is an emerging market in the United States. We're not competing with Chicago and New York and LA. We're competing with emerging technology communities around the United States for that second tier. Those cities that are about to break out, Tampa is one of those cities. So for us, I want you to look at us as a partner as we move forward from here. Not just a partner in celebrating the Bollywood and the Indian film community. That's all great. We're having a blast. We love it. We've never seen such glitz and glamour. This is more important because ultimately this means the creation of jobs for Indians and for Tampanians. That means we can improve the lives of our family members, and we can increase trade, we can invest in each other's companies, we can create wealth, we can create opportunities, we can build those bridges to a better quality of life for the people, certainly that I represent, and for your families as well. So I want you to have a great time. I want you to spend every nickel that you brought with you. I want you to enjoy this amazing weather, and I'm going to take credit for it because I would have gotten blamed if it had rained. I want you to recognize that not only have we rolled out the green carpet to you, but we've opened up our hearts and our minds to you as well. This has been a great 3 days. We got one more day to go. It's going to be an amazing culmination and an amazing celebration of an amazing film community. But let's do more. This is not the end. This is just the beginning. Thanks, everybody.
If I may just request our honorable guests here, if they can just please come forward, we'll do our first round of awards, if it's okay with you, sir. Ambassador. may also request Shilen Patel to please join us also. We are here, by the way, because of Shilen. Please give him a big round of applause. First award category is for healthcare and philanthropy. And we are very fortunate that our board of jury has chosen none other than Dr. Kiran Patel. He is getting the Global Corporate Awards for Healthcare and Philanthropy. The second one is for the Excellence in Public Service for Honorable Mayor Bob Buckhorn. Next one, there is one person who has come in all the way from India, Mr. Bhatkamkar. If you can please come forward. He is the Senior Vice President of Maharashtra Chamber of Commerce. He represents a company which has offices, which does business with over 100 countries from ATS. If you can please just join us here. For the entrepreneurial spirit, Mr. Bhatkamkar. One more award category, Dr. Shyam Mohapatra. He's a scientist and he has done lots of trend-setting things. So may I please request Dr. Shyam Mohapatra, please join us here. The first one is emerging trends. As they say it from their standpoint, what are the emerging trends that they see it? The second theme for this session is opportunities in the global economy. So what we will try to do is we'll make it very interactive. So award winners here and the delegates who are here, they get to not only ask questions but also contribute their views. So the idea is to have a session where we can learn from each other. There are lots of trendsetters here among the delegates. So we welcome your interactive contribution to this session. With that, if I can please request Dr. Nayak to get started with his opening remarks. And he has come in all the way from New Jersey. He is the Vice President of Merck. He is a trained endocrinologist. He's an MD. So let's start with Dr. Nayak. If I may please request sir to start with the opening remarks for about like 5 minutes each, and then we can open it up, or there could be follow-up discussion. The emerging trends and global opportunities in the opportunities in the global economy. So where the idea is like each one of us. Now the underlying theme there is there are diverse industries which appear to be relatively unrelated or not connected with each other. However, if we look at the organizations around and the corporate environment, the trends come in from unrelated industries to an extent where some companies even cease to exist unless they learn and connect the dots from the industries which are unrelated. By the same token, there are opportunities which emerge from unrelated industries, and that's where this platform is quite good, where we can learn from people from different industries and understand how they see the world. Like being at Merck, which is the pharmaceutical giant, what happens in that industry, if we get to know the macro trends, we can somehow relate to that and figure out whether or not there are opportunities in that sector and what could be the consequences of that in the organizations that we are in and as individuals. So with that, we would try to make it like a free-flowing discussion. So Dr. Nair, please welcome Dr. Nair.
Thank you, and it's been a pleasure and great honor to be being here in Tampa this morning and middle of all the distinguished people around. And as Bohora said, I'm primarily a physician, endocrinologist, trained in India at All India Institute, and then had a training. Then I had a long stint of private practice in India for 12 years, and again returned back, moving from academia into into a pharmaceutical industry. So maybe I think it would be easier for me to put the things in perspective from a physician, endocrinologist perspective as what I would say, using one example, let's say, of diabetes, which is an area of my expertise, from two perspectives. One as a practicing or treating physician, and secondly as a drug developer working with a pharmaceutical company. So what I have seen here in terms of diabetes, using that as an example, as all of you are aware, the incidence of diabetes is increasing in an exponential proportion, and this is what we call, as we're going through a pandemic kind of a situation, a global epidemic of diabetes over the last few decades. And this is not just in the United States, but it's also in India and Middle East and all over the world for that matter. And I don't want to go into the pathophysiology of diabetes, etc., but suffice it to say that it's predominantly a genetic disease. Now the question comes, if it is a genetic disease, why is that we are seeing this exponential increase in the recent years, afflicting almost 8 to 10% of the US population and the same proportion in the Indian population? And if you go to the Middle East, the proportion goes up as much as 13% to 25%, depending on which country you are talking about. So the major precipitating factor, as obviously all of you are aware, is the lifestyle changes, increasing obesity, lack of exercise, more refined food consumption, and other lifestyle related things. But lifestyle related things alone wouldn't have caused diabetes, but they, on top of a genetic predisposition, has definitely led to an exponential increase in the disease incidence and prevalence. Now the question is, what is the impact? Because it's not just increase in the blood glucose levels that is affecting the health of human beings. An uncontrolled blood glucose status is associated with a lot of chronic complications. Again, all of you are familiar with kidney disease and eye disease and neuropathy. And it also comes as part of a conglomeration of other diseases like hypertension, hyperlipidemias, and heart disease, etc. So this puts a huge economic burden in the society. I would say next to cancer, today the major cause of death, either directly or indirectly, that's causing all over the world is diabetes and its related complications or its associated comorbid conditions, as what we say. So the question is, how do we really tackle this major impact of this disease spectrum that's causing upon the human health? And that has led to a significant burden on the healthcare, the costs across the world, depending on whether it's a direct pay for service as in India or an insurance-based payment in the US. Everywhere the resources are getting strained because of diabetes. And so this is just as an example I would like to put forward to the group. As I can see, as a person in the society or as a treating physician, it's extremely important to make sure that this disease is controlled, and we need to look at not just treating. And today we have, if you look at the number of drugs that are available to treat diabetes, I would say probably about 10 to 12 classes of drugs, both orally administered and injectable preparations, including insulin and non-insulin, are available. But the solution is not just adding more and more drugs to the portfolio of diabetes treatment, but focus on prevention of the disease so that the future burden of the disease can be curtailed. I think the focus of the society or anybody, whether it's a physician or a non-physician or a common man, the focus has to be on prevention of the disease. And we can't change the genes we are born with, but what we can definitely change is the lifestyle related factors, and inculcating those things will definitely go a long way in reducing the burden of this disease and consequently heart disease and other associated complications. This is one example. I thought I should bring it, just basically being an endocrinologist, I have a specific interest in this area. And again, I would like to highlight what I'm talking about here is more of a type 2 diabetes, which is a common garden variety afflicting 90 to 95% of the population. And a small segment of type 1 diabetes is altogether a different disease. I'm not going into the discussions related to that. Now, as a drug developer, secondly, working in a pharmaceutical industry, having practiced in private practice in India and academia in the US and moved into industry, I worked with Novartis before and at Merck. The few things that stand out here in terms of how the drug development processes is getting more and more complicated in today's world. Especially, again, I'm going to use the example of diabetes drugs. Now the question comes, do we really need more drugs? Just now I said that we are talking about prevention of the disease, and at the same time, we need more drugs, we need better drugs working with different mechanisms of action. So currently all the drugs that are available, they work at liver, at fat tissues, at the kidneys, and various organs, and work in a different mechanisms. And now, do we need more drugs? And it's a very difficult question to answer. Even as a drug developer, I would say that yes, if we are producing the same drug working by the same mechanism that has already been established, the answer is no, we don't need more drugs. We already have enough number of drugs to treat the disease. But if you say that if we are exploring and exploiting more I would say targets to which are involved in the pathophysiology of the disease, working on those things is definitely going to be a benefit. I think the answer is definitely yes, we definitely need more drugs which will work on pathways which are not being so far explored. And that brings the question is from where this innovation is coming from. And there has been a major shift in the trend over the recent years. I mean, at least using Merck as one of the, I would say, the gold standard in pharmaceutical industry, in the drug discovery, the focus has always been working on internal research and internal innovation coming from the Merck and then taking it to the drug development and get the drug approved in the market. But today, the focus is shifting not just for Merck, for other companies. And the new head of Merck Research Laboratories, Roger Perlmutter, who came a few months ago, and he has expressing a different vision. He says that, well, as all these years we have been banking upon the internal innovation, but innovation is not just coming from big pharma, within the big pharma. Innovation is happening at academic institute. Innovation is happening at the biotech industries. So he says that we need to be partnering with a lot of academic institutes and biotechnology industry, not just in the United States, but across the world, and either license those products or maybe develop co-development partnerships and bring the drug quicker to the market. Because the cost of drug development, if we start with a bunch of compounds that are identified and before any of these meets the market, probably one drug out of several hundreds will make it. The cost of drug development is almost coming to $1 billion per drug. And this has been a major challenge. So it's been a major stress in terms of investment of resources for the pharmaceutical companies. So I think the time has come where there has been an increase in collaboration that we are seeing, partnerships we are seeing between academia, biotechnology industry, and the big pharma. And specifically in the terms of diabetes, the regulatory hurdles of getting the drug approved have significantly increased, because one of the major things that came up with diabetes drugs and even for some of the cardiovascular drugs several years ago is that we need to demonstrate that the drug not only gets the blood glucose under control, but it also leads to, would say, prevent or does not increase the risk of heart disease, because there were reports coming on and off with any diabetes drug, the risk of heart disease and myocardial infarction is going to go up. So now the FDA's guidance requirements published in 2008 clearly stated that any diabetes drug that gets to the market, we need to, all companies are bound to do studies in several thousand patients across the world to demonstrate that the drug does not increase the risk of cardiovascular disease. There are certain specific criteria that needs to be met, and including myocardial infarction, deaths, and non-fatal stroke, and hospitalization for angina. And these incidences, hazard ratios, are not above a particular cutoff. And this has put again a significant burden in terms of how the drug development is changing today. So these are some of the changing trends in terms of the disease incidence and prevalence, the changing trends in focusing in, at least using diabetes as an example, from just treating the glucose levels from a glucose-centric approach to a prevention type of an approach. And from a drug developer's perspective, not only depending upon the internal innovation of only the big pharma, but also widespread collaboration between pharma, biotech, and academic world, and trying to get the drugs approved to meet so-called unmet medical needs, in targets which have not been previously been identified, and bring it to the market, and at the same time meeting all the regulatory requirements. I think this is where the state of drug development lies, and this is, I'm sure, pretty much true for other drug development as well, but I'm just using diabetes as an example. I just stop here and agree to open for questions or further opinions from other members of the panel. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Naik. We will come back. Our next panelist he comes in from a very different perspective from the United Nations. He has been a veteran in the policy making role. He has served in various capacities. He holds a PhD in economics, and also has taught along with various other things that he has done. He has also served as the acting president of the General Assembly of the United Nations. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome His Excellency and the chairman of our Board of Advisors, Ambassador Abul Kalam Momin.
Thank you. Good morning. We just heard an amazing story of a success case of a Piranchi hotel. You see, that's an amazing story. And it convinced me ever more that it's the innovativeness, the creativity, the determination, the confidence, and the vision that can lead someone to be successful. And one big word, as I understand from the earlier panel, the big word is I can do. That is something amazing, and he is a success story. I'm very proud that this year we have honored such a success case, who is truly inspiration to so many. I only think we should have listened to him 20 years before, and then we can try out there. Anyway, so I have been asked what in the UN, I come from the UN, where there are 193 countries as member states. UN, you see, there are three major institutions. One is the General Assembly, where every country has one vote, and truly we work out their democracy. Then there are two other big institutions. One is Security Council, and there we don't follow democracy, because there is 15 members. 5 members are the permanent ones, and they basically determine the fate of the global community in the areas of security and peace. And then, of course, the other big institution is ECOSOC, that overlooks and monitors around 25 commissions, funds, and programs, all this UNDP, UNICEF, you name it. They are the one who basically monitors and advises those institutions. And that again is not run by any democratic process, because system is such, is pretty unfair. It's in the sense that 54 countries from Asia Pacific or 54 countries from Africa, they have relatively less representation there, vis-a-vis Europe, 2 Europes, Eastern and Western Europe, where they have more representation. So as a result, there again you face a lot of news. So anyway, currently we are in a very, very critical time, because next year, one of the big events which was known as Millennium Declaration, that will end. It was a 15-year program for the improvement of humanity across the nations. And we have many goals. Unfortunately, many countries cannot reach those goals, but we'll be ending the Millennium Declaration, which will be ended next year in 2050. And then we are embarking on a new program. This is known as Post-2015 Development Agenda, commonly known as Sustainable Development Agenda or Sustainable Development Goals. Currently, we are having a lot of dialogues. Over 200,000, dialogues have happened so far. We are pretty good in talking. And the objective is we have to come up with certain goals and targets. And I must say that so far we have come up with 19 focus areas that encompasses a better future. The overarching goal is to have a world without poverty. The overarching goal is to have eradication of poverty, at least abject poverty by 2030. We want to send, this poverty into the museum, and we are determined to do it. So that's the overarching goal. But we want to achieve it in a way. It's in a holistic way. We do not want to neglect, as we have done in the past years. We don't want to neglect the environmental, sustainability. We do not want to neglect the social sustainability. We don't want to sustain the economic sustainability. We want a pro-people, pro-planet development agenda. So that's what we're working currently. But the task is not easy. The task is difficult because in the last 15 years, we have beautiful goals. But when we try to achieve those goals, we found some countries are lucky. Country like Bangladesh is lucky. It has achieved my own country. It has achieved many of those goals. And with very limited resources. It's a resource-constrained country. In spite of it, it has achieved many of those goals. For example, poverty. Bangladesh has reduced poverty more than half. In 1991, around 59% people used to live below $1 a day. And now, less than 26% people live below $1.25 a day. So we made a lot of achievement. But that does not mean you should be complacent, because still there are around 35 million people who live below the poverty level. So it's a big number. But what we have found out, in our case, we are supposed to get, there was a big global partner. You were supposed to get around $115 a year per head, around 15-16 billion, $115 a year per head to achieve the Millennium Development Goal. We received around $5 a year per head. So more than $105 gap. Our development partners could not come up with the promise they made. They made a promise again and again that they would provide around 0.7% of their GNI to the developing country. Unfortunately, except few, only 6, no one could meet that target. Particularly USA is pretty behind. But the good news is, and they have very many reasons. They said that their economy was bad, this and that, and therefore they could not meet their target. And the gap is pretty huge. For example, for the least developed countries, we're supposed to get around $78 billion a year. It's easier now. But they get around half of it, 42 billion last year. Is it because there is shortage of money? No. It's a question of priority. Because last year, for example, 2012, the global community spent $1,734 billion alone for defense. But we could not spend $2 billion for global education. So it's a question of priority. Anyway, so what is the situation? The government overseas development assistance is declining, is going down. Rich countries are not able to make their payments, cannot keep their payments. And this which is bad. So we are looking for innovative financing. We know that around $17 to $30 trillion is floating around in the business world. Only in the ICT area, I'm told, around $4 trillion is floating around. And this ICT, these are these are enablers for development. We look forward, we have a beautiful goal. To achieve those goals, what we need to involve the private sector. And private sector will not go unless there is a possibility of making money. And there are a lot of possibilities. Because the emerging these developing countries, the less developed countries, they're coming up. They're becoming big market. Only the private sector is not enticed to go there. And they think that there is not enough condition in the less developed countries or poorer countries. Because of this information gap, many of the private sector don't move to the poorer countries. But once they go, they make good amount of money. I give one example. In Bangladesh, we tried again and again. We provided all sorts of incentive for internet ICT, IT company to come. But no one was willing to come. Finally, one company, a Netherlands-based company, Telenor, they agreed to go to Bangladesh to do some business in the telephone, in the cell phone business. They were enticed, not because that we have given them 5 years tax break, we have given them so many facilities. They were finally enticed to go only because they had a collaboration with a big institution known as Grameen Bank. So that because of that name brand, they went. And what is the miracle? Now, you see, and they had thought at the time that maybe 30,000, 40,000 subscribers would be there. So it's no good deal. Now there are 110 million cell phone subscribers in Bangladesh. And Telenor is repatriating every year more than $1.5 billion as profit. So there are potential. I call all the time that these poorer countries, that so far we know, the least developed countries, they are not poor. They are rich. Only thing, their potential has not been realized. To realize those potential, we need collaboration, global collaboration between the rich and the poor countries, and we need collaboration between business sector. There is an emerging market. There is a beautiful market. We need better collaboration between these, the governments and the private sector. If we couldn't do that, one reason why I'm interested in this business venture, because I want, when in the UN 365 days, 7 days a week, 18 hours a day, we have been discussing the issues of growth, issues of development. But we don't talk about private sector. This business sector is somehow absent. Those who have the money, those who have the innovativeness and ingenuity, as you have seen with the Dr. Patel, we don't have that. So I want, and it's during our, and also Secretary General nowadays believes that one way to achieve our goal is to involve the private sector. And therefore we need this private sector dialogue and discussion also within the UN system. And if we could do that, hopefully the private sector will be enticed to help the global community. What we mean by that is, once Milton Friedman, many years ago, the Nobel laureate from Chicago, he said that private sector, the social corporate responsibility is a nuisance. It is a bogus thing. It has no meaning. And he said, no, corporation will move forward for social corporate responsibility. It's a social corporate responsibility corporation only is they want to help, they come to philanthropic area, they want to help only because to sustain their long run profitability. They don't go to help someone because it will bring them, and it will look good to them. They go there so that they can maintain their long run profitability. Of course, that's a very one side of the view, but we believe that if we can bring the corporate world to the social and environmental development programs, in that case it will be a win-win situation for all. It's not only they will maintain their profitability, at the same time they will create a bigger market. And in the process, the whole global community would be winner. So that is the message we have been trying to bring to the corporate world. That if you come, you can maintain a good profitability over the years, and it will be a winner for everybody. And we could all be proud, because we have only one life to live. And during this life, we have a responsibility to the global community. And the responsibility is to help your fellow human being. And if we have this responsibility, then we have to create an enabling condition. And here at the UN, we are trying to bring the business community, creating enabling condition so they can take proud in their ventures. So in these few years, if you have any questions, I'll be open to that, and we will invite. There are good opportunities for business sector to get involved in the UN system. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. As usual, His Excellency has always been advising us as the chairman of the Board of Advisors for the Global Corporate Awards. Whenever we needed any advice or any suggestions, he has been always there. He has been the guiding force and the mentor for this platform. So we really thank you, sir. Moving on to our next panelist, Dr. Basant Sharma. He is a PhD and he heads the R&D at Janssen, which is a part of Johnson & Johnson. He has done path-breaking things in his organization. So please welcome Dr. Basant Sharma.
Good morning, guys. So before I share my views, I'd just like to leave a question for you. So think about it. We do have old disease, and as you heard about the diabetes, and we are coming up with more and more drugs. So my question to pharmaceutical world, this is a leadership reform, right? So my question to pharmaceutical world, why we cannot cure the disease? Why we have to manage the disease? That's what we are doing today, managing the disease. Why we cannot cure the disease? So stay with that thought, because this is a little bit controversial. It's controversial in J&J. When I talk to my leadership team and they say, you are crazy, can't be done. But this is going back again, $1 billion question. And it's happening when you think about the vaccination. Where is the polio? Where is the smallpox? Where is the cholera? These diseases are disappearing. Why we cannot have vaccine for prostate cancer? Why we cannot have vaccine for diabetes to prevent degradations? Now, you can argue both sides, but just keep that question in your mind. So let me comment about what is the emerging trend I see in my business. So I like to divide it into two major categories. One is digital growth, global connections. When you think about internet, when you think about digital technology, they are actually taking far advance. Something happening up here, and you can communicate anywhere in the world in less than 2 minutes. Think about that. The cost of manufacturing is going down because now you have digital technology to reduce all the sketch and drawing and everything you need. So when you think about that, that also giving a platform for a single individual. Forget about the large corporation, forget about the small corporation. Any individual can create the business on the internet. And there are a lot of examples. So think about that. What I see as the emerging trend is the digital global access, global flow of information. Very powerful tool, guys. Unbelievable. Now what that brings to the healthcare is very important, because healthcare used to be business to business model. When I started my career in pharmaceutical industry, it was all business. We developed something, worked with another big guy, and then know where patients was in the picture. So today where we are, the business to business model is changing and is going to business to customer. Patients are customers. Business is now, pharmaceutical business is very close to the patients. And that's where they have to. That's where the whole emerging trend is changing. Earlier, nobody cared. Now when you think about going close to the customer, what that means the value to the speed. I cannot take typical 12 years to bring it up to the market. That's not. I cannot pick and choose the drug. And I will give you an example in a minute. Because there are only a handful of patients in the world. The business model is changing. And I believe, strongly I believe, that this is going to be a very, very patient-centric business as we move forward. J&J just got an approval on a drug. It's called Castleman disease. Those are the physicians probably have understanding better than me. It's a lymphoma where the white blood cell production go higher and higher, and ultimately it's death. And we just got the approval on last Thursday. Now, think about that. Approval doesn't mean anything because the patient population in the United States is only 1,000 patients. Think about that. That completely changing. Something just to cure for 1,000 patients. Think about that. The requirement of the investment, obligation of the clinical trials, obligation to provide the drug is huge. And now, and the reason is because it's not going from business to business, it's going from business to the customer, which is the patients. And this is also something which is built in our ethics. If you have some solution, don't back out because it does not have business opportunity. So the speed, patient-centric, and looking into the new innovative solutions. So with that, I'd just like to bring another concept. So I started with very controversial, why we cannot cure, to all the way towards the end. We always talk about the innovation. And we talk about all the emerging countries. You guys have to come up with the speed. Help to innovate. Come back. Find something new. And in my view, you don't have to. You have to implement in your emerging world what already you have. Remember guys, implement. There is enormous amount of information already there. If you can leverage that without increasing the cost structure, without burdening the FTEs, without increasing the timeline, definitely implement that and don't worry about the innovation because it's just going to be aligned. So the first question I started, why we cannot? So I actually with J&J, I had the biotech group and I do the stem cell. And stem cells is going long time. We have the gene therapy, we have everything. It goes on and off. Some people will say it's a success. Some people will say it's never going to happen. Like any billion-dollar idea, there is always going to be debate both sides. It's going to work, it's not going to work. But you know what? You have to really, between all those debates, you have to find the solution. And you have to look into that. So I have two projects which I'm doing. The one is actually treating the AMD. It's a public knowledge. We are going into the phase 2 study. The people who are age-related macular dystrophy cannot see. Once you put those cells, people actually get the vision back. We just did a study with 16 patients. Out of 16, 15 can see. That's what I say, cure the disease, not really manage the symptoms of the disease. The second thing we are doing again is for a stem cell therapy to really how to control the diabetes. And we are trying to move into the phase 2B, which is again a public information, and that's what I mean. As a scientist, as a leader, we have to think something out of the box. We have to make sure that whatever we do has a major impact for upcoming generation and younger future. Thank you very much.
Real innovative thoughts, and thank you, Dr. Sharma, for that. Our next panelist, ladies and gentlemen, who has traveled over 57 countries. He has written 11 books, who is an expert on organization behavior, and who also has a venture which does business with various countries around the globe. And more importantly, he has served as the Deputy Secretary of Labor for the state of Florida. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. Jerry Kaler. Thank you.
Can you hear me? Okay. I got to compliment the two people down here, the photographer, she's over here, her buddy there. They are two of the most innovative people I've ever seen. I was at the convention center yesterday, and I just happened to mention that the $1 Million Arm was next door. They are the only two of all the reporters, all the people in the room, both of them, they run over there and follow me over there, and the $1 Million Arm was just sitting there. It had nothing to do. She comes up, and the photographer just as much a part of this, and they were able to get, what, 20, but you could talk to them as long as you want. And if you haven't heard the $1 Million Arm, it was one of the best sessions I've ever heard in my life yesterday. Because what I tried to point out here is that was initiative. That's innovation. And that's what we have facing us in this world. It wasn't too long ago here in the United States, a couple hundred years ago, we were like every other country. And what set us aside? What made us change? What happened? Were three things we learned pretty well. One is we believed in educating the average person. So this country does educate the average person. And the second thing is we had one language. And that helped us because everybody that came here learned that language. And then the next thing we understood was how to build an organization, how to build a system. We are faced with that same system, only here's the problem. It's global. How do you unite a global system? Beyond my imagination, when I was in a small town of 1,900 people a number of years ago, Chicago was an international city to me. I was afraid to go there. But now I've traveled everywhere. And what I see is this opportunity that we have, and an emerging trend, is who's going to invent the system that's going to put us all together? Who's going to develop a system that in India and China, Europe, Africa, that can put us together? Now somebody is doing that right now. Now we've had a lot of different systems that have come along. Japan gave us quality management, and we were slow to pick up on that system, but then, and by that time, they had, most of our cars are sold from coming from Japan. You see, if you miss the system, then you miss the emerging markets, the emergence of different opportunities that are arising. So you have to think to yourself, what is this opportunity we're talking about? Well, many of them we've already discussed. These are opportunities that we have to develop the world and make us all one. Now that's beyond our imagination. All one, we go to war, we have all kinds of problems with each other. But you see, if we all bought into the same values, because every system has a shared set of values, and with those values, if people embrace those values, they make the system work. And that's what's happening today. There are many corporations around the world that are now doing business in India, China, and so forth. And they're making these systems work to become better for the people who work there, better for their country. Anyone can go in and get cheap labor. Cheap labor has been available for a long time. But it isn't cheap labor that we're all seeking today. We're seeking intelligence. We're seeking creative people. We're seeking people who understand analytics. And here's the great opportunity that's in front of us. And many organizations have found this out. And that is the brain power of the world. And ever who can recruit the brain power of the world and put them in the right system, they're the ones that are going to make the most significant contribution to the advancement of society. We recognized this years ago when we started recruiting people, students from around the world. And if you go to most of our universities today and you will go to a graduation, you will find that, more than 40% of the people graduating with PhDs. It seems like most of them are from India, really. They're coming from all over. And why do we want that to happen? Why are we bringing them into this country, recruiting them to come in? Because we recognize their talent, we recognize their brains. And so that's what's going to have to happen, and that will happen around the world. For all you people out there that are looking for an opportunity to knock off Walmart, to find a better system than what they have, see, that's going to happen. It's going to change. But you're going to have to figure out how that system works. It works with being innovative. It works with being analytic, because data is driving decisions today. If you don't know how to analyze data, it's very, very difficult to attack an emerging trend in our society. And then you have to be able to do is speak the same language. Doesn't mean we have the same dialect. What it means, we speak the same language in relationship to values. I go all over. I can communicate with people everywhere I go. I had no trouble in India. I had no trouble in China. Non-verbally, we understand each other. And when we extend ourselves out to people, and they trust us, we trust them, we can communicate. And we can communicate in factories all around the world, communicate with a desire to respect other people, and not just to go after low price labor. Go after recruiting people, bring them into a system. So if you want to catch the bug of what's happening in our society, you want to be a part of the emerging ideas that are coming from around the world, get involved in improving systems, no matter where you go. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Taylor. If I may just open the floor up for the delegates. Mr. Bhadkamkar, who has come in all the way from India to attend this award ceremony. So we will start with you if you have any question for the panelists.
Thank you, Mr. Bohora. I think I'll take on the issues raised by Mr. Taylor. You mentioned one of the reason why America is successful here. Of course, it recognizes talent, and that's why many Indians come here, that their talent is better recognized here. But you also mentioned that there is one language. Now in India, we have 26 official languages and 1,650 dialects, recognized dialects. And you also mentioned that you are comfortable communicating with Indians, you are comfortable communicating with Chinese. So from an organizational perspective, like, see in India, people like us, we have offices all over country. So we deal with 26 languages. So maybe from organizational perspective, if you can give some examples or some experience or anything you want to say on the point you raised about multiplicity of language and uniformity of language.
Thank you. Very good question, because what brings us together, it's not necessarily the actual dialect. You can see it in China, the same problem. You run into the same thing. It's the values that we have. It's that respect for each other. It's that ethics that we use and how we go about. It's valuing data, valuing teams. People work together in teams. You may speak a completely different language, and they work in that team. They work together. The most important thing is, how do you and I get along, and do we value the same thing? Americans like to think that we own the values of the world. We're in a capitalistic system. We believe heavily in capitalism. Capitalize on the situation. That's not necessarily true throughout the world, because many people around the world value people more than they would in capitalistic ideas. So what are the ideas you and I can share? If we share the same values, you and I are going to get along. Now we got to do that one by one. And we've got to do it, and it's going to happen. I'm telling you, it's going to happen. There is a system out there, a large organization that's going to be able to have a set of values that's going to operate around the world, and that's going to come together. And I see companies here, back in China, St. Petersburg company over here has a company over in China. You wouldn't believe what they're doing and the respect they have for those people. Not the same language, but yes, the same values. And those people, they get all the benefits that we have here. We give them an education, we pay for their school. Now, they don't make as much as we make here, but what we're trying to do is to share our values with them to the betterment of them and their society. So it can happen, and it will happen.
Thank you, Dr. Kiran. Next one is with us. We have another delegate who is very qualified to ask, hopefully, a qualified question to the panelists. Dr. Saleh Rahman, also known as Shizan Mahmood. He is a PhD and an MD, a very unique combination. And since we have lots of people with similar or designations or the industry, so would you have any question for the panelists? So he can write doctor before and also PhD after. So the doctor from the front and in the end. So thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Actually, the question comes from my personal background that I need to tell why I have two names. One for professional medical academic purpose, the other one for writing. As you know, that I'm a published author of Bengali. With all humbleness, got a National Academy Award for that. I published so far like 25 books. My comment and question will come to the panel in this way, that when I looked at my own passion of life, like I grew up in a village that got electricity in 2000. So you can imagine until 10th grade, I used kerosene lamp to study. But when I was in medical school, like 17 years old, and started diabetes, and our manual was Jocelyn Diabetes Manual, as you know. So I looked at the book and always started looking at, okay, Jocelyn Diabetes Center in America at Harvard Medical School. So can I go there? So from that like tiny village with a kerosene lamp and starting and dreaming to come to that, and virtually I got the International Diabetic Federation Award for combination of my writing and medical background. I really need to tell that because there's the innovation part. Like I started developing diabetes education in Bangladesh using different type of cartoon, music, all sort of. The reason is for the low literacy people. How can you make them understand what is HbA1c? So I told them with a cartoon that look at this picture. One is Israel, another is Palestine. They are friends. They shook hands. So the Israel would be your hemoglobin, and the Palestine would be your sugar. They shook hands, but they cannot persist more than 120 days. So your hemoglobin A1C is like that. They will combine together, but they cannot persist more than 120 days. So you have to measure that within that time. So that, I call it preventive marketing, preventive health marketing. So I brought that and I came to Harvard, and when I finished my fellowship in endocrinology, like Dr. Naik, I had a dilemma like which way to go. What is the trend of this and what is my passion? So can I combine these two? Can I be a millionaire not by just taking money from other people's pocket, but entertain them? So can I do that? So I started filmmaking. And this is the last part. That last week actually, when I received the Richmond International Film Festival Award for my documentary called The Mall, there was a film director from Hollywood. He got 2-time Oscar for Jurassic Park and Saving Private Ryan as sound director. So I shared this story with him, and now within a week, screenwriter for his next movie. So I thought this is how we should look at the trends. What is going on in the business world? What is going on in the creative world? Can we combine those? So to my panel, the same question. When a person like you, with a lot of disadvantages in a society, have a dream, and they look for the dream, what type of work or what type of opportunities we can offer when you are in a position like what you are right now?
To anyone? Whoever, please feel free, whoever wants to answer. Ambassador, first of all, thanks a lot for bringing in a star to this platform. So thanks to His Excellency, he recommended his name very highly, and now we know why. It's such an honor for you to be here. So thank you very much.
Very, very impressive. I like it. And when you think about the dream, most of the people always have a dream. Some are successful, some are not. The people who are successful actually understand and navigate their dream, how to do. All right? So when you think about the how we can and how I actually do that. I do have a relatively large group. I have a significant amount of diversity. Have different backgrounds, from chemical engineer to all the way to the medical. And when you think about that, they all have a different way of thinking, different approach to the life, and they have different dream. Not everybody wants to make money, but they have something which they like to do, giving back to the society. And as an organization, as a leader, I think what we have to do, we have to really mentor those guys and help them as moving forward and provide them the direction how one can really reach to their dream. And I think we don't do that anymore. And I think as a society we owe it, and I think we should do that. So that's maybe a response. Thanks.
Thank you, Doctor. With that, I think, of course, we'll have the lunch session in the end, and then we'll all get the opportunity to interact and ask questions to the panelists and each other. So, with the permission, His Excellency, with your permission, if we can move on to the award ceremony. Yes. So then, if I may just request, so we'll start with the award ceremony now. So if I may just request His Excellency and Mr. Bhatkankar also, he's our organizing partner from Maharashtra Chamber of Commerce, to be here. Dr. Kelan. Thank you, sir. Thank you all the panelists. Thank you. Please request Shilen. Shilen here. Shilen, can you please join us?
So the award for excellence in IT security, Mr. Rahul Bharadwaj, and we have Mr. Rahul Bharadwaj, IT security, FIS Global. Global Corporate Award for Information Technology, Mr. Raman Mehta from EWIE, East West Industrial Engineering Company. Global Corporate Award for Healthcare and Community Service, Paramita Das,
Please
from
request
Clean the World.
May I please request Shilan Patel to present this award, please?
Global Corporate Award for Insurance in Life category, Mr. Bimal Shah, CEO of Rajprat Group of Companies.
Request Shilan Patel to please present the award, please.
Global Corporate Award in the Scientist and Academia category, Dr. Saleh M. Rahman, Sezan Mahmood from A&M University.
His Excellency, if you can please present the award.
Insurance PNC category, Paresh Patel, CEO Homeowners Choice Insurance. Mr. Paresh Patel.
Is he here?
I think we are missing Mr. Paresh Patel, so if we can move on to the next category, please. Thank you. Dr. Nirmal Sinha for Public and Community Service from Southeast Asia, Floyd Brown International.
Let me request Mr. Bhattamkar from Maharashtra Chamber of Commerce please to present the award.
Healthcare and Global Impact for Dr. Ramchandra Naik from Mud and Company.
His Excellency, if you can please present the award.
Global Corporate Award in the Scientist category, Dr. Basant Sharma from Johnson & Johnson, Janssen Pharmaceuticals.
Request Dr. Keller please to present the award.
Mr. Sanjay Lunawat for interior designer category. I don't think we have him here.
Someone is representing him from University of South Florida.
We have somebody from the University of South Florida representing Mr. Sanjay Lunawat here, please.
So he was planning to come in from India, but last minute he could not come in. So he is accepting on ambassador.
Award for Entrepreneurial Spirit, Mr. Rupesh Srivastav. Mr. Rupesh Srivastav, please, from Yansoft.
Dr. Jerry Taylor, if you can please present the award.
Healthcare and Community Service, Dr. Dinesh Daftari. He's a dental surgeon from Mumbai. He is not able to make it. I don't know if we have somebody representing him now for the award. Maybe his daughter? I guess not. So we'll move on here. Award for International Development, Peace and Harmony for His Excellency John W. Ash. He is the President of United Nations General Assembly.
If he is not here, but Dr. Taylor, maybe His Excellency Ambassador can accept on his behalf. And Dr. Taylor, if you can present on behalf of Mr. Ash. Thank you everyone. So you can please take the seat. So with this, we come to the conclusion of this award ceremony, of course followed by lunch and networking. But with that, I just want to take this opportunity to extend a vote of thanks to the board of jury. Mr. Davendra Lal, who is the MD of Bank of New York Mellon, he is the chairperson of our board of jury. We thank the entire board, our board of advisors, our partners, Maharashtra Chamber of Commerce, IBG, Indo American Society, Asian Indian Chamber of Commerce, we thank for their partnership. The media, ITV is here, and there are many other friends. We thank you for their support and for being here to participate in this event. The University Club, Tony and Brian, he has taken, it's a center of excellence actually. Brian, if I can just please request you to please come forward. He is the chef here and he did not know how to cook the Indian food, so he saw the videos on YouTube, he read the books and he created the recipe. So we really thank you, Brian, for an extra mile and excellence. So Tony Cruz also, he has been here all along for us to put this event together. Please give him a big round of applause. Very, very excellent. And to all the delegates and the partners here. So you have taken time to be with us and enjoy the evening. And special thanks to Mr. Shilen Patel, because of whom we have shifted our venue from New York to here. So thanks a lot, Shilen. Thanks for your time. Thank you, everyone. We look forward to seeing everyone for the lunch. Please enjoy lunch. Thank you.
We were actually camping outside until yesterday. Yeah, yeah.
Global Corporate Awards. Global Corporate Awards.
And all in. I didn't know that you have awards going on at just
Oh yeah. So whether it's about business, I was, I told, the team behind.